Morning, everyone. I hope all is well. I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea to do with this week's Parashat and Teshuvah. In the beginning of the Parashat, we have a very interesting scenario, a case called Ben Sorer Umoreh. What exactly is this Ben Sorer Umoreh? A rebellious child. But now this rebellious child is something very interesting. You have a child that comes, he steals money, and what he does is he steals from his parents, he uses it to buy meat, to drink wine, and he starts doing all these terrible things. And all of a sudden we come, and the Torah tells us, what is the fate of this child? We kill this child. Why? Nidon al Shem Sofo. What does that mean? Rashi says that Ben Sorer Umoreh is killed because of the end result, because the Torah already knows what's in his mind, that he's going to get rid of all his father's money, because remember, he already stole the money from his father, right, in order to come and to use it. And then what happens is that he's going to start stealing from people, and he's going to even kill people. So the Torah says he should die when he's not a culprit, when he's not such a bad person. He should yamut zakai ve'al yamut chayav, but he shouldn't die when he's going to be in such a scenario of that he's obligated because of all the different things. Which means that if we're going to pause, what are we saying here? We are not judging this child according to now. When are we judging him? Al Shem Sofo. What's going to be his future? What's he going to do in the future? And because we don't know what he's going to do in the future, we judge him now. Okay? That's in this week's Parashat. Mamash, the beginning, Rishon of this week's Parashat, Parashat Ki Teze. The Mefarshim ask, and this is a very famous topic on Rosh Hashanah, that in Bereshit Rabbah, it brings down to do with Ishmael. Ishmael, after they were divorced from the house of Avraham Avinu, Ishmael and his mother Hagar, what happened was that they had to go away. Avraham Avinu gave them water and he gave them everything, but there was a whole question whether it was that the water, that since he was sick, he was always drinking too much, because a sick person needs to drink a lot of liquids, or whether it was that they started doing avodah zarah, so because of avodah zarah, all of a sudden the water stopped, because before the water just continued going and going, and it never needed to be refilled. It was like the waters, of Baba Sali, the arak of Baba Sali and all the other stories, that you were just able to pour and pour and pour, no matter how many people were there. Just continue going and going and going and going. And the beracha was always there, no matter what. So, but the second they were doing avodah zarah, it stopped. So the water ran out. So there it says, Amar Rabbi Simon, Kartzu malachei hashareh lekatrego. What happened was Avraham Avinu, right, in this merit of Avraham, or the merit of Ishmael, we're going to say, he was going to be saved. So Ishmael was going to be saved. The malachei hashareh, they jumped. And they said, Amru lefanav, ribono haolamim, master of the universe. Adam shu atid la'amit et banecha batzama, ata ma'aleh lo be'er? This is a culprit. Ishmael in the future, he's going to kill your children with thirst. We all know the famous story when the Jews were looking for drink, for food. What happened was that they came out, the children of Ishmael, and they gave us salty fish. And when you eat salty fish, what do you need to do afterwards? You need to drink. They come after eating the fish, they open up the bakbukim, these water bottles, and all of a sudden they go like this, and there's only air. And they were very, very thirsty. So before, they were hungry and thirsty. Now, they're even more thirsty. You know how many Jews died? Thousands of Jews died. So comes Malachei Hasharet and he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look, you're going to save Ishmael? Look what he's going to do to your children in the future. Amal lahem, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Achshav mahu. What is he now? A tzaddik or a rasha? What is Ishmael right now? So the mullah, they said, a tzaddik. Now he's fine. Amar lahem eni dan et adam ela b'shato. I only judge a human being according to his time. Right now, I'm not going to look in the future. That's the concept, what we call, in the words of the rabbis, ba'asher hu sham. According to the way that he is right then. Right? And that's why it says, Ki shamai Elokim et kol hanad. He heard the voice of the lad when he was right there. Rashi says, right now. Right now they're going to judge. So Rashi brings down this midrash. So the question that we say, and that's why the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Teze Mubet says, Amar b'Yitzchak, en danin et adam ela lefi ma'asav shel ota hashah shneimar, ki shamai Elokim el kol hanad b'asher hu sham. So therefore, which means that we're going to judge him according to then and there. We're not going to judge him according to the future. So the question that we ask ourselves is, there's a contradiction. What's going on? In the Rishon of this week's Parashat, it's written that the Ben Sorer Umoreh, we're going to judge him at the end. Meaning right now, he didn't do anything. What did he already do? Fine, so he stole from his parents, he ate meat, he drank wine. For that, you have to kill him? There's a death penalty. Where's it written in death penalty for such a thing? Right? Even for stealing, there's no death penalty. Even lashes you can't give for stealing. Because the fact that they could return that which was stolen, it's a love shembom, it's a love shenitak la'aseh. It's a love, it's a negative commandment that you could fix with a positive commandment, so you don't even get lashes. Now you're going to tell me you're going to kill the boy for eating meat and drinking wine? But rather, why? Because we just said, because it's al shem sofo. What's he going to do in the future? At the end, he's going to finish his parents' money. Then he's going to steal from people. Then he's going to kill people. So you know what? It's better that he dies when he's still, innocent, than when he's meant guilty. What about Basher Usham? Here you're going on Shem Sofo. Here's Basher Usham. An incredible question. The first one to answer this is the Maharal, the Gur Aryeh. One answer. Listen to this answer. The Maharal says there's no question. Why? That which we said, Ena Adam Nidon Lefi Ma'asav Shel Ota She'ah, it's Betin Shel Mala. The Betin above, in the heavens, they are going to judge according to right now. Why? Because they're only going to judge right now. But the Betin Shilmata, they want to actually come and they're going to judge Al Shem Sofo to save him from the Betin Shilmata. And therefore they're going to say that, you know what, it's better that he should die now in order to save him from the Betin Shilmala. And we can never compare the Betin Shilmala Lamata, because it's two different judgments. That means it's much better that he would actually come and be obligated in this world and you finish him off. And then in the next world, he's the biggest tzaddik, than to do the opposite. So that is the answer of the Maharal. So beautiful answer of the Maharal. So Maharal says, Betin Shelmata, we judge, right, al Shem Sofo. Betin Shelmala, they're only going to judge, right, Lefi Sha'ah, according to that moment, which is very ironic. And the reason why it's ironic is because Betin Shelmala, which is the upper courts, know the future. The lower courts do not know the future. They're making an assumption that this is what he's going to be doing. But still, it's exact opposite when they come up to Shemaim. In Shemaim, they're going to come and they're going to say, right now, what is he? But down here, they're going to see what's going to happen in the future. Let's see what he's going to do. Which I think is very, very incredible, because there's another place where we saw that, the punishment. Betin Shelmata, the lower courts, when do they start punishing? Bar or bat mitzvah. That's when they start the punishing. Betin Shelmala, they only start punishing at the age of 20. So you see that the upper courts are actually more lenient than the lower courts. But I do think that the lower courts, they have to pay attention to the society. And therefore, they're going to come and they're going to say, what's going to be at the end? Is this going to be a menace to society? He's going to start killing people. He's going to start doing all these things. So because of this, they went and they took into consideration, you know what, it's better that he dies now, that's, innocent, than guilty, right, later on, after killing and after murder and all these things that he's going to be doing. So that's the first answer of the Maharal. The Re'im and the Chizkuni, which are other Rishonim, they came and they answer a different answer, which I think is very, very interesting. And listen carefully. They want to say Yishmael was different because Yishmael did not start doing the Avirah whatsoever. He didn't do any Avirah. When is the Avirah? In the future, his we're going to say offspring, they're going to come and they're going to do such a terrible, atrocious act against the Jewish nation. Here, though, the person, this boy, he already started the Avirah. The boy already started on the bad course. Why? Because he already started taking from the money of his father and start buying the meat and the drink and being all, frivolous, start eating and drinking, getting drunk and all these things. So therefore, because of that, he's already on the bad path. He already started it. So because of that, the Ben Sorer Umoreh is going to be killed because he's already on that path. Meaning if he was the other one, Ishmael, he's judged right now because right now he didn't do nothing wrong. He still has a clean slate. As long as he has a clean slate, he's judged according to right now. In another 10 months, another year, doesn't matter. Right now, clean slate. The Ben Sorer Umoreh, he already derailed from the path. He's already there. Because of that, that's it. Nidon al Shem Sofo, we kill him now. That's the answer of the Re'im and the Chizkuni. If we're just going to understand according to this, right, now it comes out the following. When a person comes and they start on a certain path, that's where we see how important it is in order to see all the rest. Many times it happens, especially you could see this by children, and we mentioned this in the past. But you have two children that they went to the same school, to the same thing. They have almost identical upbringings. And all of a sudden, there's a fork in the road. That fork in the road, they both choose to take different directions. Even though at the beginning of the fork, it is very small and very minute, right? Because of this little tiny fork, the difference between them, we don't realize how much of a difference of an impact it actually makes. And the example that we give many times is a highway. When you're going on the highway, all of a sudden you have a fork. And you could go on this side of the highway or the other side of the highway. If we're traveling together, right, in two different lanes, one right beside each other, and all of a sudden they split, at the beginning, the distance between them is very, very small. At the beginning, mamash, right when it starts, you're right beside each other. You could almost even, each one sticks out the hand from the windows and even connect. But then as the time starts going, they continue distancing. And now from the distance that they were, all of a sudden, after they've been traveling, remember that if each one travels 1 hour in that direction, to come back to the same point, they're going to need 2 hours. Because they need the 1 hour to come out and then the other hour, which means that there's going to be a huge difference afterwards. And therefore comes the rabbis and they say the following. We have to understand that when we're going to come and we're going to pay attention to where are we headed, we have to know where we are at the beginning. Meaning, which path are we on? Which side of the highway are we on? As long as we already started the good path, that's already going to be a good sign for the rest. Now, this is actually another pasuk, right, which is a contradiction. One pasuk says, Ki lo echpotz b'mot hamet. I do not want the death, right, of the person, which means that a person is doing something wrong. He doesn't want that he should die. Another pasuk in Shmuel says, Ki chafetz Hashem lamitam. He wants to kill him. So answers the Gemara, when we're talking about that he did teshuvah, and when we're talking about that he didn't do teshuvah. So Yisrael Salanter asks, and this is the Gemara in Masechet Nida. So Yisrael Salanter asks, obviously, if he did teshuvah, so what's going on there, right? He did teshuvah. Obviously, he doesn't want him to do. He doesn't want him to die. And if he didn't do, what's going on? So he says like this: if a person is fitting to do teshuvah, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's ma'arich hapo. He gives him time, and he waits for him to do teshuvah, and he's going to live. But if he's not mukhshar to teshuvah, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? It's better to take him already. So how do you know if the person's fitting for teshuvah or not? And this, I think, is what Goldie was trying to. What does that mean? So he says it's the hergesh sheyeh chai margish bechesrono Are you missing something? He says, if a person feels that they're empty, they feel that they're missing something, so then in essence, they're fitting to do teshuvah. If they're fitting to do teshuvah, so then Hashem is ma'arich hapo. He wants them to do teshuvah, and He's waiting for them, even though it takes time. If a person does not feel that, so then the teshuvah is completely lost. And this, in essence, if you look in the bulletin, in this week's bulletin, if I remember, I think it was Rabbi Frand. The first one of Rabbi Frand, it was called Serenity. Incredible. It was this Yesod. What does that mean, this Yesod? He went and he said as follows. He said, do you know Lot? It says Lot, Sodom was destroyed, and Lot chose Sodom. Why did Lot choose Sodom? Because he said he was emulating Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, he had a peace of mind. He was connected, his guf with his neshama. His body and his soul were connected. They were never fighting. So since they were never fighting, what happened is that there was always a peace and a tranquility. But why? Because he was always doing the good things. Lot, when he separated from Abraham, what happened is he wanted to find the same thing. But he couldn't find it because you need people like an Avraham Avinu that everything you're doing just for Hashem, for spirituality. So where did he go? He went to the other extreme, the physicality. In Sodom, it was the exact opposite. You know why they had peace and tranquility? Because they were so connected to their physicality that they didn't even think about spirituality. Spirituality didn't even speak to them. It was like, what are you talking about? They're tranquil. They have all the peace in the world. You think they're missing something? They have everything that they need. They could do all the avirot in the Torah, and they are with themselves, with everything. With peace and tranquility. That's what they need. That's what they have. So therefore, Lot actually went to the other extreme. So he explained over there, that's when Ki'ilu, there's nothing what to do. In the case of Sodom, it had to be destroyed. Why? Because it was the peace and tranquility to the other side, to the other extreme. That's what we're talking about here. If a person feels that they're missing something, that means that he's already oseh teshuvah. He didn't do it yet, but he's doing teshuvah. He's on the teshuvah process. What does that mean? Sometimes it happens, right, that a person will come and they feel terrible. And this happened many times, right? Imagine right now, I come and I give a Mussar Shus. And everybody's here listening on, they're all listening live. And I come and say, by the way, you should know, there's this punishment and this punishment and this punishment and this punishment. You're all going to be afraid. Imagine right now if afterwards I come and I say, you know what, don't worry about it. What's going to happen? I ruined my entire Mussar Shus, right? I woke everybody up and I ruined everything. That's exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Moshe Rabbeinu comes in next week's Parashat and he gives them 98 curses. You don't keep the Torah, 98 curses. Their faces turn green. Who's going to listen to 98 curses and say, you know what? Don't worry about it. Yeah, their faces turn green. They were all what? 98 curses. You couldn't find any more curses? So you couldn't pull out another 2 from your pocket even? Like what? You needed 98 curses? But what happened? Comes Moshe Rabbeinu and he says, you know what? In the Shabbat afterwards, he says, don't worry, you're here today, you'll be able to continue. What did he just do? They were all afraid. They were all trembling for their lives. And now he comes and he says, don't worry about it. That's it. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, you know why don't worry about it? The fact that you guys still have this feeling, the fact that you're becoming green, the fact that you guys feel bad about everything that's going on, about how you're acting, don't worry, you're on the right path. If you guys would have been with an empathetic, basically no feelings, no emotions. So then in such a case, right, when you would have felt in such a way, then you're right. Yeah, then you're right, 100%. Yeah, but if not, no, it wouldn't have been there. So therefore, says Chachamim, this is what we have to feel. What are we feeling? Essence that we're feeling bad about how we act, that we have to do teshuvah, that's already the start process. That's a remorse. That's charata. That's a first step. If we don't feel that, then we have a problem. So therefore it comes, and this yesod is found in a few places. Listen to this. Rabbeinu Yonah, he wrote the Sharet Teshuvah. Remember that the Sharet Teshuvah is the opening of everything to do with Teshuvah. Everyone learns Sharet Teshuvah during Elul. He says Sharet Teshuvah, Gimel Kuf Mem Aleph, he says like this. He says, Amalbim Penei Chavero Barabim, if you embarrass somebody publicly, you don't get Chelek Olam Haba, you don't get a portion of the world to come. So they said, why? He said, why didn't they say this on a normal murderer? Right? A normal murderer does get a Chelek Olam Haba. He says, you know why? The one that embarrasses their friends, they don't realize how bad their sin is. So therefore, he's very distant from doing teshuvah. So therefore, since he's very distant, that's why he doesn't get a portion of Haba. A person that murders knows that he killed. He knows he murdered. If somebody embarrasses somebody publicly, big deal. What, they really murdered? Big deal, okay. Embarrassed him. He said something, they were all laughing. It was a joke. Continue life. Says the Sharet Teshuvah, that's why he doesn't get Olam Haba, because it's very difficult for him to do Teshuvah. Another place, certain places in the Gemara says somebody that transgresses the word of the Chachamim, they're Chayav Mitah. Says Rabbi Yonah, why? Even more than Mitzvot to say Mitzvot. Why is it on every single thing of the rabbi he said Chayav Mitah, but on the Torah, no? He says very simple. He says the same thing. Because he says that what's written in the Torah, people are very afraid, but it's the Bible. It's biblical. It comes from the Torah. If it's a rabbi's, big deal. Okay, so the rabbis told me not to do something, and I'm going to do it. So, okay. What happens? Chayav Mitah. Another one. He says if he's not going to put his mind on it all the time, or a safek avera. If a person has a safek avera, you know what a safek avera means? An avera that I don't know if I did it or not. So they say that's called many times. If you don't know if you did an avera or not, you have to bring a sacrifice. What's a sacrifice called? Asham talui. Talui means it's depending, because I don't know if I did the avera or not. It's not a vadai. It's not a for sure. It's maybe. The Asham talui has to be more expensive than a chatat, than a sin offering. Why? A sin offering, you already know you sinned, so you bring the sin offering. And Asham talui, maybe you didn't even sin. So since you didn't sin, it has to be more expensive. Why? You're not sure. So when you're even doing the process, did I really say, maybe I didn't even do any problem. Maybe there wasn't even an Avirah. So since I didn't even do an Avirah, big deal. Go ahead with it. There's no problem. So because of that, says Chachamim, that's why a person has to understand. Right? That's why a person just has to realize, right, what's going on. So therefore, it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is actually trying to teach us, something very, very interesting. He says, everything depends upon our feelings at the beginning. First of all, where's our path? Right? Which means, are we on the good path or the bad path? And number two, do we already feel that we're missing something? Do we feel the remorse? Do we feel that we really need to do teshuvah? The second that we feel that at the beginning, that's already the beginning path in order for us to do teshuvah. Have a wonderful day. Kakadosh, good morning. We ask ourselves, how are we going to prepare for Yom Adin? How are we going to prepare for the day of judgment? We all want to prepare. We want to run, to do things in order to prepare. How do we prepare ourselves? We're going right now in less than 15 days to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're going to start asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, listen, Judgment Day, we're going to show him, the different things. What's going to happen? How are we going to act exactly? So he comes and he says as follows. The Rambam, and in Ilchot Teshuvah, he says as follows. This is Perek Gimel Halacha Bet. A person that his sins are more than his zechuyot, immediately dies in his wickedness, as it says, Arov Avonecha. Or a Medina, a country that has more sins, immediately is going to be destroyed, as it says, Za'akat Sedom Va'amora Kiraba Vechen Kol Haolam Kulo. The same thing happens in the entire world. If they had more sins, they would have been destroyed. As the Pasuk says, but this calculation is not according to the minyan of the zechuyot. It's not numbers games. Why? It's according to the value. Because it's not numbers. There's sometimes a mitzvah which is connected many avirot, as it says, Yanim Tzaki Dvar Tov. And sometimes there's an avirah which is compared to many mitzvot, as it says, V'chotei echad, one avirah, yabed tova arbe, you could lose a lot. And the only one that could do that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yichodo V'atzmo, himself, El Deot, because he knows how to evaluate the different mitzvot. Which means that now it actually is something very interesting. Some people think, you know what? It's a calculation game. Yeah, I'm an accountant. And what I'm going to do is just check. Are you making more money, profits, or losses? Afterwards, make the calculation. And according to that, that's it. You have everything. And that's all that you need. But saying that's not the way that it is. Why? Because we don't know exactly. Now this, even though the Rambam was talking about this is at the beginning of the world or whatever, every single year it's going to be done, as the Rambam continues saying. And therefore, all of a sudden now, we come and we ask ourselves, so what are we supposed to do then? Because if it's not a numbers game, but obviously we have to do a mitzvot. So what the Khatam Sofer comes and he says, what are we supposed to do? Listen carefully. Yadua b'sfarim dechol hamishtokegim limtzo she'ei efshar lekayman ata. Right? If you are going to yearn for a mitzvah that you cannot accomplish it now, they give you the reward as if you did it. Al derech, just like it says, chashav la'asot mitzvah, right? And you were forced that you weren't able to do the mitzvah, you get the reward for doing the mitzvah. Rav Shimon Shkop, he was once speaking with somebody, right, on the concept of benefiting and helping out the study of Torah. So they asked him, are you rich? So he answered no, right? So he says, so then, one second, if you're not rich, why are you speaking so much about the importance about helping out? So he went and he says, no, but I have the ratzon to give. Meaning they thought that he was one of these big Baalei Batim, that they support Torah, they're giving, hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year to supporting, whether it's yeshivot, kolelim, and all these things. So they asked him, are you a big gvir? Gvir is are you a big rich man? So he says, no, I don't have it all. So he says, so then what are you talking about then? He says, no, I have the will to give. I want to give. That already is enough. The wanting is already there. They actually once said, if you remember, we once gave our Dvar Torah that they said that if a person really wanted to give, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you the opportunity to give, right? Because if you really wanted it, you would have it, right? I told you the famous story. There was a beautiful story that I heard, I think it was last year, an incredible story. The story was that there was a person that used to support an entire kollel in Eretz Yisrael. And what happened is that the virus came and it shot him, and he had a lot of problems. So he called up the Rosh Kollel and he told him, listen, I'm gonna try all that I can. I'm gonna keep the avrechim and everything, but every single chag we used to give out ma'anak lechag. All the avrechim and all the kolelim in the world, they give something which is called ma'anak lechag. Ma'anak lechag means that besides paying the regular salary, they give them a bonus. So, for example, I remember in certain kolim, they would give out food vouchers, clothing. They would give out, whatever it is. In a sense, sometimes they would give boxes of food. Sometimes they would give out, a lot of places they would just give cash, and they would give you, and you decide whatever you want with that money. But it's an extra, it's a bonus, right? And that's what they used to do. So he told them, listen, every single year I used to give this, but I'm very sorry, but I just can't. I can't this year. So he said, okay, fine. He says, if something changes, right, I'll let you know. He says, okay. Listen, the Rosh Kollel, what's he going to do? He comes, he tells Avrechim, listen, at least it wasn't, he didn't take off from the regular amount, but I don't think there's going to be Manak Lechag. So they said, you know what, okay, let's all pray for him, and they're going to continue. The person, he felt terrible. Yeah, he felt terrible. Okay, but what's he going to do? Yeah, he comes, he goes to his backyard, right? He sits down, and all of a sudden beside him, he sees there's a cat. And he's looking at the beginning, he shoot away the cat. Didn't want to go. Finally, okay, shoot a little bit more. Finally goes, he gets his worker. He comes and he tells him, listen, get rid of the cat. Get rid of it, throw it. Fine, okay. He comes, he sits down again, and he feels terrible. He really wants to give them their, like usual, their manak lachag. He sits down, he opens up the newspaper, he opens up the first page of a newspaper, and there's a big picture. Missing cat. Yeah, please call this number. He looks, and 1 second, that was just a missing cat. He calls the guy back. He gets up running. Hey, did you just say, what? You told me to get rid of it. Run. They start running. They catch the cat. He calls up. They come by. Yeah, come. You have to bring it to this address. He comes. He says, okay, fine. So they come and they said, by the way, it was written there, we're going to give you a reward. So he says, okay, whatever fine. They give him a check. Yeah. How much was the check? $10,000. He called up the Rosh Kolel and he asked him, remind me again, how much was the Ma'anak L'Chag that we used to give every single year? The exact same amount. He says, you could give it to them. I'm sending you the check. That's what it was. If a person really wants to give, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him the opportunity to give because he wants to give. And that's the secret behind, right, the Yisod. However, though, that's what the Khatam Sofer said. So the Khatam Sofer, he comes and he says, it's known in the Sfarim HaKadoshim, if you want to yearn to do a mitzvah, even though we can't complete it nowadays, but we give you the reward as if that you did it. So Chazal say a very interesting question. Why is it that on Rosh Hashanah, we do Tkiyat Shofar in two different fashions? We do it sitting down and standing up. Why do we do it in such a way? Sitting down and standing up. So the Gemara says, you know why? Kedei le'arvev et Satan. To make the Satan cuckoo. Because we're sitting down and standing up. What's going on? Right? When they do the beracha, we're sitting down. During the Amidah or Chazarat Hashat, standing up. What's going on? Make the Satan crazy. Why? Says Rashi, Kedei le'arvev, we're making him crazy. Shelo yastin, that he shouldn't go against us. Why? Because when he hears that Yisrael mechabevin et mitzvot, that we make that the mitzvot are so precious, he stops. He stops his words. Why? Because the more that he's going to talk, the worse that it becomes. Now, what does that mean exactly? What's the secret? How do we keep the Satan quiet? Think about it. Our best thing, our best weapon is shoot down the Satan. The Satan wants to come and he wants to say that we've done A, B, C. Put the sock in his mouth, throw it into his mouth. That's it. He can't talk. You finish the job. So what is it exactly? So he says, Alidei chibur mitzvot. When we show how precious mitzvot are to us. So our job throughout the entire month of Elul is to beautify mitzvot. Hidur mitzvah. Precious is mitzvot. Sometimes we're not obligated to do it, but I want to do it anyway. I want to do it because I want to show how precious it is. I'm not obligated to do it, but I love to do it. That preciousness shows what's called chibur mitzvah. That also, he keeps quiet. He doesn't want to say it. They bring down Rav Akiva Eiger. Rav Akiva Eiger actually said that that's the explanation when we say that if a person does teshuvah me'ava, if you do teshuvah from love, then your averot become mitzvot. So he says that's the explanation in Rashi. Once he sees the Bnei Yisrael, they have so precious a mitzvot because they're doing it from love, the Satan, he's afraid. Why? Because he thinks that they're doing everything now from love. So now what happens? He's going to come and he's going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they sinned. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. To continue going, what's going to happen? At the end of the entire list, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, beautiful. They did teshuvah me'ava. What happens now? Everything now that you just mentioned becomes mitzvot. So what does the Satan do? Satan says, you know what? If I see that they're doing everything from love, I keep my mouth shut. Why? I'm going to put my foot in it. The more that I'm going to open up my mouth, the more mitzvot they're going to get. So you know what? No, they don't do anything. No mitzvot, no averot. Keep it that way. That's a Satan. That's what the Rav Akiva Eiger comes and he says. He says because what happens is he's going to add. So because of that, he keeps his mouth quiet. Yeah, and Rav Yitzhak Blazer actually comes and he says the Satan is mitbalbel on Rosh Hashanah when he hears the shofar. Why? Because he says maybe the Mashiach will come. So he says what? Every single year this happens. Did the Mashiach come? Mashiach didn't come. So why is that happening? So he says, but rather he says maybe now they did teshuvah. So if they did teshuvah, now that's it. So therefore he says, right, if a person actually comes and he says that look how many years have passed and we still didn't do teshuvah, there's still no tikvah, whatever. So he's worse than the Satan. Meaning the Satan, every single year, you play the same trick on him and he'll still fall for it. Why? because there's always a chance. We're not gonna fall for it. We're not even gonna think about the chance. Somebody showed this to me that you could do this with a dog. I never believed it until I saw it with my eyes. There was a dog that was barking and barking and barking. He was behind a fence. My friend went and he said, look at this. He bent down ki'ilu, he picked up a rock, and then he went like this, and he threw the rock ki'ilu. The dog, what did it do? It jumped backwards. Yeah? And then what happened? He starts again to bark. Again, he does the same thing. Again, the dog jumps backwards. Now, the thing is, the funniest part was, my friend didn't even have a rock. He didn't have anything. He was make pretend, keilu, that he's picking up a rock. And now, he didn't do it once or twice. He did it 10 times. And every single time, the dog jumps. Right? And then afterwards, the dog comes back and he starts barking again. So what's going on? That's the way it is. The Satan understands that there's always a chance. If there's always a chance, why are you going to take that chance? So therefore, what our mission is to realize that if we're going to say, you know what, look how many years passed by, look at this, still we don't have a Mashiach, or look how many years, listen, I'm still the same, nothing bad, nothing good, okay, so just leave it the same. We're going to be worse than the Satan. Pay attention. We have to become much better. So therefore, what are we supposed to do now? We have to do chibub mitzvot, make precious the mitzvot. We found another place also, the Gemara Brachot. The Gemara Brachot of Tet Amubet says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Vatikim ayu gomrim otay netzach hama. They used to finish off with the netzach hama. They used to do vatikim, the nets. Why would they do vatikim? Because the vatikim they used to finish it. There, Tosafot comes and it says, right, why is this brought down that if somebody does the nets, they don't get damaged? He says, you know why? Because Rashi says vatikim, anashim anavim, humble people, umechabevin mitzvah. They make precious the mitzvot. Because they come and they do it early. They make it precious. So you see from here that the making the precious of the mitzvot is a protection from the mazikin. It's a protection from who? The Satan. So therefore, what are you supposed to do? Vatikin. You try to do Vatikin. That's why, by the way, you should know why it's so important Vatikin or Rosh Hashanah. You don't know how many minyanim. I once remember I got up once, right? It was, I think it was at 7 o'clock. In Eretz Yisrael, there was no such thing as a minyan as Sfaradim anymore. You know what I'm saying? You have to go to some shtibel, some this. Why? Nets. Nets. You know what it is? Mechabevim the mitzvot. They make precious the mitzvot. All of a sudden, the Satan, mudo. He can't even open up his mouth. He keeps quiet. Why? He knows if he's going to talk, it's going to become worse. There's also Gemara Berachot. The Gemara Berachot also, another Gemara. Darash Rav Avira. Listen to this. Rav Avira says, sometimes it happened, they said in the name of Rami, sometimes they said in Rasi. Malachi Asheret went and they said, it says, Ashelu Yisafanim, V'lu Yikach Shochad, and then it says, Yisasha ben Amalecha, which means, does Hashem show favoritism or not? So last time we already answered, if you remember, that during the month of Elul, yes, afterwards not. But then he comes and he says like this, he says, right, what exactly? He says, he shows Panim Yisrael why? Because it says, V'achalta v'savata right, uverachta, Bnei Yisrael, we are machmiim on themselves. Why? We make Birkat HaMazon even on a kazait, on 28 grams. Really, be'emet, we didn't really need to until we were actually full. So Tosfot says, it shows the chabivut of the mitzvot. It shows how precious our mitzvot. Then that's why we get a special nesiyat panim. We get a special favoritism from the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's midah keneged midah, which means if we show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we want to do better things and we want to become better, that favoritism we get it back as well when HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually comes and he shows it to us.